Well, welcome to Talking Geek Weekly.
Yep.
And I'm going to, well, I guess we'll just jump right into it. You ready?
Cool. I am ready.
Okay. All right. So I want to just sort of thank you for being on the show. I want to say this is a huge honor for us. We are huge geeks, and you are literally the archetype and architect of what a creator is and the works that we grew up loving and we continue to love.
Yeah.
So this is big for us. Okay, all right. So
I hope I don't let you down. I do not want to disappoint you.
Impossible.
You started off.
I'm sure you won't.
When anybody puts me up here, I'm like, all right.
That's highly unlikely.
Do my best.
Unless you're Rodney Barnes' twin brother, Jenkins.
I'm too big.
It's like a twist in one of his stories.
Yeah.
He's a clone.
Yeah.
He got replaced last night.
Like halfway through the interview, it's gonna be like, Jenkins, get out of my chair. I done told you twice.
There you go.
All right. Okay. So I came to know about everything you've done because I was home. I live in the Philippines, and I was home, and I was looking through like a local newspaper, and it was like Rodney Barnes is going to be signing some comics, and I'm like, okay, who's Rodney Barnes? And then I started reading it, and it was just like he went to Howard. He's from Annapolis. Like everything was just lining up, and I'm like, this guy is like my successful doppelganger. So as a comic book writer from the Maryland area, I just want to say that you are a huge inspiration. I sent you a message and I was like, look, I don't know you. You don't know me. This is way too long already.
That's exactly how Fred types, by the way.
That's how I type. Yeah. So just going into that, so you are from Annapolis, Maryland.
I am. I was born at the Naval Academy. You can't get more Annapolis than that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unless you're born on top of a crab cake sandwich,
Yeah, well, there's that too. I did, as a kid, I had to catch crabs. That was part of my job.
Wow.
I totally understand.
That's still Maryland.
Yeah, I grew up in Davisonville, Maryland. So outside of Annapolis.
I know where Davisonville is. Yeah.
Okay, so now I've done extensive research, and I haven't been able to find where you went to high school. So where'd you go to high school?
Annapolis. I went
That's
to
what
Annapolis.
I thought.
I went to Eastport Elementary. I went to Annapolis Junior. I went to Annapolis Senior. I even went to Anne Arundel Community College for a year and a half or so.
Okay, that brings me to my next question. I know that after Anne Arundel, you went to Howard University.
I did. I went to Bowie first, and then I went to Howard.
Really? I went to Bowie too. I got my master's.
My mother graduated from Bowie.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Guess what, Fred?
It's deeper. Yeah.
Hey.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, what dorm did you stay at Howard?
I didn't. I lived off campus.
Okay.
I lived in Greenbelt at the time, and I would commute because I worked at a Georgetown Law Center. I was a campus cop.
Really?
By night, 11 to 7. Then I went to school from 9 to 2, and then I worked at Walmart as a department manager from like 3 to 7, 3 to 8, and that was my life for a few years.
Okay. Wow. What was your major at Howard? What did you study?
Communications.
Okay, makes perfect sense. Okay, so now as a person from Maryland, okay.
Dr. Dates. Did you go? You went to Howard?
Yeah, I went to Howard. I graduated 2004, but I got my degree in 2005. Okay,
yeah, Dr. Dates, Freeman, Mr. Freeman. Yeah, there's a bunch of all those folks, but continue.
Okay, yeah. I got to ask you, as someone from Maryland, DC Go-Go or Baltimore club music? I just got to know.
Oh, DC Go-Go.
There we go. DC all right, my man. All right. Okay. All right, guys. Remember, I said we deleted at a certain point. We're past that point at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got a question. How did you go from working at Walmart, having a degree in communications, to going to Hollywood and becoming sort of this big shot in Hollywood?
I still haven't landed on the big shot part yet, but I'll take that as one day it's going to happen. Well, I'll give you the quick version. When I was at Georgetown Law Center, a movie, The Pelican Brief, came to film. You've never seen that movie?
I've seen it.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
loved
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not ashamed to say I had the DVD.
So,
I love that film. Classic.
so I signed up for all the overtime details because I'm in the school of C. I want to work in film and TV. So this is right up my alley. And all of those scenes with Julia Roberts and Denzel right in there, they filmed them all there. And I met a guy, Gary Fiorelli. I don't think I've ever said Gary's name on a podcast before, but Gary Fiorelli was a key PA on the movie. And so as I was watching them make the movie, I noticed there were these people scurrying around doing things, and they were production assistants. So Gary was in charge of the production assistants, and I sort of befriended him whenever they would take a break. And I said, what do you do, man? I'm in film school. I'm trying to figure out, how to get into this. And he said, why don't you come work for us for a couple of days? We've got some big scenes by the Washington Monument and at the White House and blah, blah, blah. We have a bunch of extras. Maybe you can help. They only paid me $100 a day, but it was the best $100 I'd ever had. And I sort of was snake bitten. You indoctrinated me. And from there, Gary hired me on Major League 2 and a bunch of other movies, which eventually led me to a movie, Major Pain, with Damon Wayans.
I watched that too. Really hilarious.
I'm actually the first name in the credits. They cut my scene. I was in a scene.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So I told Damon I wanted to be a writer. And for the next 2.5 years, I followed him around the country, working on his movies. And as a production assistant, sometimes I punch things up. But that led me to working on a movie, Bulletproof, with Damon and Adam Sandler in LA.
I think that's too really hilarious as well.
I'm actually in that movie. I'm about to rape Adam Sandler in jail. When Damon comes to rescue Adam from jail, I'm the inmate that's about to rape Adam.
Later.
And so shortly thereafter, I'm going to jump over a couple of things. I moved to LA because I'm here now. And I lived in my car for about 8 months or so and worked my way out of my car to an apartment. I worked on Blade. I worked on Rush Hour, the Rush Hour movies, a bunch of other movies as a production assistant. And then eventually I worked on a movie, The Green Mile, as Michael Clark Duncan stand-in.
Wow.
Because I wanted to meet Stephen King. And there's a story that goes with that. I won't burden you with that story. But I ended up meeting Stephen King, ended up working on a movie, and was so moved that I decided I had to kind of accelerate this idea of just surviving in LA and then ultimately doing the thing that I wanted to do. So I started to really focus and hone in on writing. And then eventually Damon hired me as a punch-up writer on his show, My Wife and Kids. That was my first WGA job.
I've seen a few episodes of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen it all. Seen it all.
He hired me for one day, and I just kept coming back. And this was before 9/11. So security wasn't very tight. I just would see the security guard, and it's like, yeah, man, I'm just going in to see him again today. It was like, well, all right, cool. And eventually I kept coming so much that they gave me a job. And I turned that job into 20 years.
Persistence.
Wow.
That's the dime version of how you get from A to
The
how
origin
I got
story.
from A to B.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you went to Howard University. For everyone out there that doesn't know, is a historically Black college. And I've noticed that through your extensive body of work, that's been a prevailing theme. The experience of the African-American, whether it be Lando Calrissian in Space, or Seesaw in Killadelphia, or the Boondocks. You bring a specificity and a variation to the African-American experience. How has Howard University sort of helped you in bringing those different shades of the African-American experience across so many landscapes?
It was Howard, but it was also the period of time that I was in. When I was there, it was right around the time where Spike Lee was kind of at his height as a filmmaker, and Robert Townsend was making movies, and because most of the stuff that I'm a fan of are 70s movies, like Scorsese and all of that stuff, like the big, right around the time when Spielberg was making Jaws and Close Encounters, and Star Wars was there with Lucas and all of these guys. Those movies were too big for me. Like I couldn't wrap my mind around ever being smart enough to be able to be in a world where I was making those kinds of movies. But the movies that spoke to my culture, those were the things like, okay, I think I can do that. And the thing with Howard was very hands-on. It was such a creative community. If you went over to the fine arts department, you would see people acting. And you would see in the School of C, you would see people making things. And everybody sort of had this attitude like, we're going to one day do this for real. I didn't come from that in Annapolis. There wasn't a whole lot of belief that you were going to do anything more. Like, my family really didn't have high expectations that I was going to do anything more than get a job at some point. So I never really had the self-esteem or the just that inner stuff that have, like, I saw a documentary once with Spielberg, and he was like 8 or 9 years old, and his mother got him a camera, and he's in the backyard making movies, and his family's like, he's directing his family. That wasn't my story. My story was the opposite. And so I had to kind of fit. I had to find my place, and I wasn't superiorly confident either. Like, I was happy to be there. And okay, if you guys are doing it, I'm going to try too. And so I would kind of co-opt other people's confidence and other people's drive, and Howard was a good place to sort of be in the nucleus of all of that creativity. And there was a movie theater, Biograph, in Georgetown, where they had independent movies. And I wasn't really a big independent movie watcher, but I saw Daughters of the Dust there and a bunch of movies like that that were coming out at the time, because it was sort of a Renaissance period. And all of
what year are we talking? What year are we talking?
Oh man, 90, early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And I just felt like those movies spoke to my culture, what I could do, and what spoke to me, and that made it possible. So once I connected with Damon and other folks around that period of time, I worked with Chris Tucker on the Rush Hour movies and other people along the way. I sort of gained more and more and more confidence by being in the environment of it. And then eventually when I got into it, it probably took a decade before this is real. Like, I was terrified every single day, like, even as a writer, because I had imposter syndrome, and still to a degree do. Like, do I really belong here? And after a while, I just, even amidst being fearful, I still showed up every day, and I still gave my best effort. And so that sort of bled into getting more and more opportunities. And I was never secure enough. Like, I knew writers who got a gig and were comfortable in that gig. And I was always afraid that if this one goes away, because most shows get canceled like after a year or two. I was fortunate that Wife and Kids ran for as long as it did. But most shows don't have that. They get 2-3 years at the most. So I'm thinking, what do I do after this ends? And I didn't have an agent, and I didn't have an infrastructure to the business, because when you're in the movie, film, TV business, you're sort of an independent contractor. Once the show ends, you got to find another one.
Yeah.
So what I did was I would start to kind of put seeds out while I had a job for another job. Like, for instance, I did the Boondocks and Wife and Kids at the same time.
Okay.
When
my next question,
Wife and Kids ended, I got Everybody Hates Chris, and so then I was doing Everybody Hates Chris and the Boondocks at the same time. So I was always afraid that unemployment. I was always afraid not just of unemployment from a financial place. I was afraid of, okay, this means I have to go back to Maryland. Like, this thing is over. Like, it was fun, go home. And, you know, I just, the neurotic nature of being afraid, I just never allowed myself to be comfortable enough to be comfortable.
It's a common fear, Rob.
Yeah, I can imagine. So now, talking about the Boondocks, I've got to jump to the Boondocks.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
so the Boondocks is